Hey kids, looks like our friend Mary is having a hard time understanding how socialism works, so let's talk about it, okay? In a capitalist model, the capitalist is the person that owns what is called private property, and in this situation it would be a factory, but it could be other things like land or even assets that can generate profit. Then you have the worker. Because the worker doesn't have any capital of his own, he has to sell his labor in order to survive. And when everything is paid for, the overhead and the wages and things of that nature, anything left over is called surplus value, or we also call profit. This profit then goes where? That's right, into the pockets of the capitalist. But then they put that into other things, maybe back into the factory, or possibly into other assets to generate capital. And the cycle starts all over again. But in a socialist society, this type of power structure would not exist. Instead, the worker would own democratic power over the private property, or also called the means of production, and the profits or the surplus value generated. But what about the capitalists? What happens to them? Well, in first stage socialism, or also called lower communism, the capitalist still does exist, but he has no power or very little of it. This is what we mean by the dictatorship of the proletariat. You see, in our modern day society, the government likes to pass laws that benefit the bourgeoisie, but not the workers. But in a socialist society, there's a lot more economic democracy. Can you say economic democracy? Great! I knew you could! Now, under a Marxist idea, or also called authoritarian socialism or state socialism, they would be using the state to eventually whittle away the power of the capitalist and gain more power for the worker. And as time goes on, the state's goal is to eventually make the workers independent so they would have no need for money, and without money there would be no class, and then ultimately, the elimination of private property is the most important thing because it's private property, the putting of a fence around some kind of piece of asset, is what actually started everything. And eventually, when people finally get along and understand that they can govern themselves, then the state is eliminated. Well, I hope I did a good job explaining that. This is a very complicated and nuanced subject. Well, see you next time.